State Representative and Democratic nominee for the 32nd Congressional District, Julie Johnson. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Absolutely, Jack. Thank you so much for having me.
You bet. So, how would you sum up Vice President Kamala Harris's speech and the convention itself?
I thought her speech was fantastic. This is my fourth Democratic convention to attend. It was by far the most concise, powerful, energetic, purposeful speech I think I've ever heard at a convention. And the convention energy, Jack, has been off the chart. I mean, Democrats are fired up. I thought this convention was flawless, and the message, the energy, just the whole thing, the speakers, the program, everything was fantastic. And I know this. I was sitting with the Texas delegation, and we are ready to go.
And so, what message do you think is going to resonate most with voters back in Texas?
Well, I think a lot of the messages, but freedom for sure. I mean, Texas, we all value our freedom in Texas. You know, we're an independent bunch. We like to control our own business. I think Coach Walls says it best, mind your own damn business. And, you know, I think Texans really embrace those messages. And unfortunately, Greg Abbott and the Republicans in Texas have sought to really interject government into our personal freedoms, take over our bedrooms, take over all kinds of things, our rights to control our health care. And Texans don't like it. And so I think those are the issues that are going to be really prevalent in the campaign trail.
And why do you think that? Because obviously we're talking about reproductive or abortion rights. Why do you think that's the case? Because in 2022, we did not see that. And that was right after the Supreme Court had overturned Roe v. Wade. So what's changed now, do
Well,
you think?
Well, I think for one, I believe it because that's what voters tell me. You know, I just came off a very competitive, aggressive primary, and I knocked a lot of doors and I talked to thousands of voters. And that reproductive access, the right for women to control when and by whom and how they have a family, is paramount. It was the number one issue in my primary. And I think also what we're seeing is we've had a couple more years to see the really devastating and harmful effects of Greg Abbott's and the Republicans' legislation trying to attack women. You know, we've had Kate Cox, we've had other stories that have really come out that have highlighted the absolutely devastating consequences that this legislation has put on women and their safety and their health.
And let me ask you, so how does this all, from the convention, you come back home, and so how do you translate the excitement from there and bring it home and then get people to the polls in November?
Well, it's hard work. You know, that's what it's certainly something I'm used to doing. We run really tough, hard campaigns. That's why we've been successful every time we've been on the ballot. And I think Democrats understand we can't take this for granted. You know, in 2016, a lot of us thought Hillary Clinton was going to win, and we kind of cruised into the election thinking we have this, and we don't want to relive that movie. And so, you know, this is we're going to do everything we can to not rest on our laurels from a credible convention. And we know our mission. We know that we have to put shoelaces in, put 1 foot at a time, one phone call at a time, one voter at a time, every day until the polls close on November 5th. And I think Democrats understand that mission, and we're ready to get to work.
So let's talk about the economy. Many economists blamed the spending back in 2021 for the record levels of inflation in 2022. Obviously, inflation has come down. A lot of people, according to the polls, are still very unhappy about the high prices. So why do you think that Texans, Americans should trust the Democrats to see this through and lower the cost for people?
Well, the Democrats, you know, Joe Biden has led our country through some very tumultuous times. He inherited record inflation, a pandemic where hundreds of thousands of people in this country died and were sick, and we had to put everybody back to work. And Joe Biden and his leadership and Kamala Harris and her leadership really made that happen. You know, we came out of the pandemic. We're a healthier people. We dealt with the inflationary prices. Inflation is now down at its all-time low that it's been since, due to the economic policies of the infrastructure bill and Build Back Better and everything else that he's done. And so, you know, unfortunately, you know, inflationary periods are cycles, and that started under the Trump administration and Trump's policies. And he's the reason why we entered into this horrible inflationary process. but Joe Biden is the reason why we're ending it.
Well, Republicans obviously are going to feel differently about it, but so does the public, according to the polls. So how do you convince the public that Kamala Harris would be the better choice than Donald Trump?
Well, I think it's just the facts and messaging. It's just like what we've said. Kamala Harris has a very aggressive economic plan to try to reach the middle class and lift the middle class up. Donald Trump's plan has always been top down. It's all been about himself and the very top echelon of wealth in this country. And that's why we see under his leadership, the top 1% of people, their wealth grew immensely, and everybody else, their economic power decreased. So that's what Donald Trump did. And under Joe Biden, that gap has narrowed, but we still have work to do. And that's why we need to elect Kamala Harris.
And then let's talk about border security, obviously a big issue here in Texas. We saw record numbers of people cross illegally into Texas and the southwest border during the Biden administration. And so I'm wondering, why do you think the voters in Texas and across the country should stick with Democrats on this?
Well, let me be clear. The immigration problem and the border security problem in this country has been a multi-president, decade-long problem. We've been kicking the can down on immigration reform for many, many years now, stemming back from when George Bush was president. And the immigration problem, especially the acute problem at our borders, really started under President Trump. But what we've seen now is we had a very aggressive border security bill that Republicans participated in. Let me be very clear. Republicans participated in, and Joe Biden was prepared to sign it in a very bipartisan way until Donald Trump killed it for his own personal gain. His regard for our border security had meant nothing if he thought it was going to harm him electorally. And so what happened is Joe Biden issued an executive order, and you know what? Our border crossings have dramatically dropped because of that. So Democrats are the only party that have really taken action on our border security, and in a meaningful and productive way. And the results speak for themselves. And I'm looking forward to getting to Congress to really address our border and address immigration reform. And I'm looking forward to working on that.
And so what would you try to turn into law specifically? Because right now it's an executive order.
Right. Well, I think we need to go back to the bipartisan immigration bill that was on the table, and start with that as a platform and as a building base. But I think we also really need to relook at our visa structure system and how people are able to come to this country to work. People want to work for a living, and employers need workforce. That's one of the things I hear out on the trail all the time by businesses is we need help getting workers into our business. We are having the hardest time finding people to work, and we need to hire workers. And so we do need to really restructure our visa structure. It hasn't been revised in decades, and that's something I want to really take a look at. I know Congresswoman Veronica Escobar is working on a bill like that, and I'm very interested and eager to get with her and look at really the details of that and see if there's something that we can really promote.
And last question, you talked a little bit about it before. How's your campaign going for Congress, and what are you doing to ensure that your supporters get to the polls?
Our campaign is going really well. We are all pedals on the gas, man. We are working really, really hard. Voters in Texas 32 are really excited to turn out the vote. We have a very robust campaign plan. We're going to be out there knocking doors. We are reaching voters in every corner of this district to turn out for the ticket up and down the ballot. We need to elect Colin Allred. We desperately need to beat Ted Cruz. There's some very competitive House seats that also sit under Texas 32. So we are working for Democrats up and down the ballot, and we are fired up. And people have reached out to our campaign like crazy. Our phones have been ringing off the wall, especially during this Democratic convention. Democrats are ready to go. We heard the call. That's what we heard all week is get going. That's what Michelle Obama told us. That's what every speaker has told us. Get going and get to work. And I think Democrats have heard those instructions, and we're ready to go.
State Representative and Democratic nominee for the 32nd Congressional District here in North Texas, Julie Johnson. Thank you so much. Safe travels home.
Thank you so much, Jack. Y'all take care.